Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. We have your favorite guest with us here today. But before I start, I just want to say, for those of you who went unmatched, I was in your position last year and I know it can be really difficult time for you and emotions can be up and down. But I want to remind you that we are very proud of you for coming this far. And if you don't stop striving, you will eventually get there. And this is why we're here, because we want to give you the best advice from the best advisor. He is the Vice Chair of Medicine, Program Director of Brookdale Medical Health Center, and he's the best educator for the USMLE exams out there. And he's the founder of MedQuestReviews, which we will talk about a little bit later. So let's welcome Dr. Conrad Fischer. Yes. So Dr. Fischer, we have here our Unmatched applicants who are thinking about a lot of things right now, how to improve their CVs at the moment, how to become a better applicant for their future application. What kind of advice would you have for them before we start tackling the questions they have submitted?
Well, I think that the first thing is what you started with, Sarang, which is that it is like not going unmatched is like losing a relative or having the breakup of a relationship, or getting fired from a job. It's like being fired from a job you didn't have, but you still feel like you've been fired.
Yeah.
And I think that the most important thing is what you said about that, hey, I was in your position a year ago, and now Sarang's coming into residency this July. Yay! So that's really the first thing to say, because it's very sad and heartbreaking and disappointing that this is part of the process of working through that sort of pain.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely hard. All your hard work and, you put everything in there and then you see the result and, it can be very difficult. And from the questions we have received in the pre-registration, the most commonly asked was people who graduated 5 to 10 years ago. So they're an old grad. And so they're asking, how do we actually kind of go over the filter of, a lot of the programs have the filter of at least 5 years of graduation or 2-3 years of graduation. Like if they do want to be competitive, even though they are very old graduates, what can they do?
Well, one of the most heartbreaking things is about discrimination against older graduates. People who are out more than 5 years, certainly more than 10 years. Now, this is based on a perception that some people have of that older graduates won't be flexible, won't be teachable, they'll be arrogant. I have not seen that. Now, our program is one of the few that doesn't have age or a year of graduation cutoffs. Consequently, there's more people here that graduated 5 and 10 years ago than in other places. And I have not ever once seen that sort of arrogance or don't talk to me. People jump in and perform just as well. But the problem is that when you have a perception that something is not as good, it's very hard to overcome that perception. The programs, if the program coordinators have been given that impression, says have a filter for year of graduation, there's nothing you can really do about it, and you're stuck. So what you have to do is look for programs that are frankly less competitive specialties, to check the specialties that went unfilled. For instance, a lot of preliminary surgery goes unfilled. More pediatrics goes unfilled than other places, some in family practice. And to look and see, well, where are the places that have the largest unfilled rate? And that will help you as well.
Yes, that's very helpful. And yes, I guess you could do a really good program search to see whether they have a cutoff or not and tackle those programs instead of going for programs that have those cutoffs. So the next question we have is people who have failed attempts. People who have failed step 1 or step 2 CK either once or twice on their records. What can they do?
Yes, well, this is one of the things that step 1 going past fail really hurt, because you could show that when you failed, that if you passed, that you passed with a very high score. So now the ability to show yourself and that score is gone. It's really quite tragic. particularly for IMGs, where those tests existed for a way to say, hey, I'm as good, I'm better, to show my quality.
I can actually do this.
Yeah. Well, what's the difference between antique furniture and old furniture? Quality.
Yes.
Eh? So I'm not an old grad, I'm antique. You should put me in a museum.
I am quality.
I am quality, okay?
Yeah.
And so the overcoming a fail can be overcome if it's a fail on step 2, that when you do pass, that you pass with a big score. And I've always wondered why people who had failed step 1 or 2 didn't put every single effort they could into the last remaining test. For instance, if you didn't take step 3 yet, taking step 3 is a huge thing you can do. Because one of the few advantages of being an international graduate is that you can take step 3 without having to do a year of residency or 2 years like US students do. And there's your opportunity that's the single most measurable one. The single most measurable one is a grade on step 3. It can say, well, what happened to you on step 2? Well, I don't know. I thought I prepared and I really tried hard and I thought I did everything. I'm not certain. You're disappointed. I'm more disappointed than you. That's what you should always say. You're disappointed. I'm more disappointed. But if you give me a chance, I'll show you that if you give me a chance, I won't let you down. So here's what not to do. There was an applicant who did not meet the criteria for an interview. But he had met someone and somebody felt to take a chance, take a look. And I asked him the question, do you think a person with a score that's low, like 210 or 220, or a failure, and a person who passes on the first time with a 250, 260, do you think there's actually a difference in the amount of knowledge? Or do you think this is just all test-taking tricks and like a game? And he goes, oh, the scores on those tests need to go away. They need to go away. They need to be extinct. They need to disappear. These tests need to disappear. No, that means nothing.
Really?
I know just as much as anybody who has a high score. It's just garbage. And it was really disturbing and he really believed it. Now the thing is, if you did really well and you say, I don't think the test is that valuable, it'd be one thing. But when you've got a fail and a low score, it's kind of like saying, well, listen, guy, you don't brush your teeth, you don't take a shower, you don't dress very well. Have you considered cleaning up? And then maybe some girls will pay attention to you. Oh, no, they're all just bitches. Like, guy, dude, take some personal responsibility, would you please?
Yes.
Okay, as the song says, people are strange when you're a stranger. So the thing is to say, well, I wish I could have done as well on those tests as some people. I admire that accomplishment. The same way I admire people who can play basketball or tennis or golf. I mean, there's all things that I can't do well. The people who are really good at it, you go, wow. I mean, why devalue other people's accomplishments? You say, well, I have other things I can be an accomplishment. I will work harder than other people. I'll make more of an effort. I'm just not good at that one thing, but I'm going to try the best I can. And that's what I would do about previous failures.
I've noticed that among you guys who pre-registered, there are 70% of you guys who did not take step 3. So there you go. Step 3 is one way to increase your CV, to better yourselves, and to, show that you can do it.
By the way, the issue for some people, if you say, because people get defensive and they say, those tests don't make you a better doctor. Well, the question of what is a better doctor? What's a good doctor? That no one really can agree. You can say, well, for instance, a lot of people who like their doctor like them because they communicate well, or they're easy to get. They get a phone call back. They're available. An available person. What are you putting on? What did your doctor put you on for diabetes, for your type 2 diabetes? Oh, he started with a sulfonylurea. He's wonderful. He started with glipizide. Oh, he's fantastic. What did your doctor start you on for your congestive heart failure? Oh, digoxin. He's wonderful. He's terrific. When I have a problem, I can always get him. Like I was getting confused and seeing yellow halos around the lights. But he's a wonderful doctor. Now, the patient doesn't know that the wrong drugs are started. But they
have
go,
no idea,
he's a wonderful doctor.
Because they can communicate.
Correct. Next is you can be a super genius and not be available. And an unavailable genius is not very useful. So what is a good doctor? Very hard to agree on that. Knowledgeable. Does the test indicate more knowledge? It does, and anybody who says it doesn't is just telling themselves lies in order to make them feel better. And that is why it's important to say, well, I can't say that that person with the high score is a better doctor. We can say that they're either smarter or more knowledgeable. In the test-taking land I have been in for 30 years, when somebody goes, no, they don't know anymore, they're just a better test taker. There's some merit to that. In which case, I'm not honest with people who don't seem to want an honest answer. I let them sleep. They want to stay asleep, I let them sleep. Because if I'm honest for somebody and someone says that person's a better test taker, then if I'm honest, I go, well, then you should have made more effort. You should have made more effort.
Or learn to become a better test taker.
Or if you can't, then at least work harder. Make more effort. So that is why what you'll also do if you get asked what happened with your fail or your low score, you don't belittle the accomplishments of others. You say, those people have a wonderful accomplishment. I wish I could do that too. Maybe I will someday.
So the next question we have is, people want to ask, because they're thinking of what to do next, people who already have step 3 and then already done the exams, now they're thinking, okay, do I do more US clinical experience or do I go for a research position somewhere, whether it's unpaid or paid? What would actually be better to put on their application that will kind of make the program director be like, oh, this is great?
Yes, well, I think that a research experience is preferable. I think that some people want U.S. clinical experience because they just have that as a requirement to their program. So you don't have to do that forever. So when I talk to program directors and they say, I require a U.S. clinical experience. And I go, well, what is that experience? Because they can't actually touch patients. They can't write orders. They can't write notes. So therefore, what is the meaning of being an observer? And some of the people just go, I want it because I want it because I want it because I want it. That's what I want. I want it. It's a requirement of the relationship. For me, it's like being told, I love you. Why? Because I want it. It's a requirement of the relationship. Like U.S. clinical experience. However, the thing about research that's different is this. You may be more likely to make connections that will get you an interview at a program that you otherwise might not have gotten. The research people might have connections themselves to help you get in. Please interview and see my person. Number 3, if you actually have publications, that also may help. But the other thing is this. Whether it's paid or unpaid in research, you're not paying for it. And that is a very significant difference about a research experience. The issue with U.S. clinical experience is that in many places, the age of the world where you can just call up the hospital and say, hi, I'd like to be an observer in your hospital, that is gone. Big hair bands, my hair, other people's virginity. I mean, it's gone and it's not coming back.
Yes.
And then you end up having to pay. And by the way, some people pay for those clinical experiences. And that, honestly, if you can't get it any other way, that's what you're going to have to do. You know, if some program directors, for instance, I don't have that requirement, but some people do, they may just have to pay to get it.
A follow-up question to that is, how do you think people should go about searching for these research positions, or also increase their networking, or like in making their connections for the future?
Well, that's a very hard one because there's no central space for it. There's no Amazon.com for research experience. You can't Google that so easily. So one of the things is that people network out. They network out on Reddit. They network out on Instagram. They used to network out on Twitter and Facebook.
Yes.
Yeah, but you do what you can. There's the IMG event where 600 and 1,000 people go to.
Yes.
And so IMG event gets put on. It's put on in a way that's like costs almost nothing to show up there.
Yes.
You know, somebody sent me a comment that was posted on Reddit where it's like, man, this IMG experience, you know, what are you expecting over there? Like, if you're expecting to go over there and get a contract handed to you from a program director, it's not going to happen. You should lower your expectations.
What?
And this is like,
are you serious?
This is like people who say, well, you went by a film shoot in an on-location space in New York or Los Angeles, and you're expecting to be discovered by the director who sees you on the street, and you know, I've got to have that girl in my movie.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, come on, man.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you got to grab at those any networking opportunity you have, whether it's online or it's live, like the IMG event is. So I know people who got residencies by showing up at the IMG event. They did, because they made connections. Okay. And there were some of our own residents who were at the IMG event, and they liked a particular guy who had shitty scores, and the guy got himself definitely helped by it. But the other thing about research experiences is one of them is just writing to people. And so if you're an actor, you have to do 10 to 20 interviews, auditions, to get one job. And so the difference is 80% of actors are unemployed. And they say to me, it's always so funny to me how you guys, who just because you graduated medical school, all expect to have jobs. We are like happy if we work twice a year. Yes, the average actor makes about $27,000 a year for their jobs. Wow. But you take your shot. Go to classes, go on auditions, go to cold calls. Can't hurt, might help. And so what if you write to 100 places? Let's put it as an equivalent to this. I had to hire an infectious disease doctor for the hospital here. The chief of infectious disease is retired. And I had the email of every program director in infectious disease, all 167 of them, got collected, and it only took 4 hours to do so, 4 hours, for one of the administrative assistants.
Wow.
Goes onto an Excel spreadsheet, and she's collected the phone numbers too, which I didn't need. So she collected the names, the institution name, the emails, and the phone numbers for every program in the country. I emailed it out. I got 3 applicants for infectious disease attending.
Wow.
Within a couple hours.
Wow.
So you only need one job. So let's say that you email 200 places looking for a research job, and only one place shows interest. You can't work at 2 of them, right, bro? Broette?
Nope. So go ahead.
Man, what would you be like if you were sperm? Look at all these guys. It's like millions of them. How am I going to get the egg? Look at all this competition. I'm going back.
Retreat.
Retreat.
Yes, so definitely go send those emails out to the research positions available online. There's a lot on LinkedIn. You can go there. There's a lot available. So send out your emails and see who, there will be responses coming, hopefully.
Who knows? Maybe you should start it. Why don't you start it yourself? A researchconnection.com. Researchconnection.com. Start an organization. First aid was developed as a set of notes that a bunch of medical students made for themselves to study for step 1. Now, we use for evaluations, a system called New Innovations. The second largest one is called myevaluations.com. Myevaluations.com. So the first time I was a program director 25 years ago, I wanted to get rid of bad faculty didn't teach, or at least take the residents away from them. Because I said the students are paying and the residents shouldn't be exposed to faculty who don't care. Now, the chairman of medicine had been there for many, many, many years, and he was very defensive, protective, and insecure. And he would go like, what do you mean by bad faculty? You're not a good teacher. You're just entertainment. You just wave your hands around and jump up and down and try to be cute. And I'm the real teacher. You're just a showman. Show me some data. So I knew I had an intern from St. George's who had been a programmer in the past. And I said to him, hey, David, you do me a favor, can you program out some surveys that were sent to residents and get data on who's got a good teacher and not a good teacher so that we can show it and so we can move the residents to the good teachers. Said, sure, Dr. Fischer, I'll take care of that. And he makes something up and we send it up. He comes to me a couple weeks later. He's a very entrepreneurial guy. And says, Dr. Fischer, would you mind if I did that thing that I made for you, if I sort of put some extra stuff on it and developed it into something as like a thing that I can send around, market it to other hospitals? I'm like, sure, David, great idea. And now, 20 years later, that's myevaluations.com.
Wow.
Because the intern
That's amazing.
basically just kept it going. And now he's in like 500 or 700 hospitals.
Wow.
Thousands of programs.
That's amazing, yeah.
And it's like he just kept going. Now, about 5 years later, when he's already graduated and successful, I did my first book, a question book. And the question book, because at that time I was still relatively new to things, they go, nobody wanted to publish it. It was before QBanks. People actually had question books. Remember books, paper? And there was, I couldn't get a publisher. And so the same guy says, I happen to have a sideline gig that a publishing house, PBS Publishing, I'll publish it for you.
Wow.
And so the intern, 1 year's intern, becomes my publisher later, and then Kaplan took everything, and McGraw-Hill. But my first book was published by a former trainee who just was ambitious. So that's the thing to say to people who are unmatched. You got to live. So what sort of thing that you can do and start right now to help yourself and help other people that might help network you into the job you're looking for. Because the only difference between a brave person and a coward is a brave person panics forward. You're in a panic. Panic forward. Panic forward.
Thank you, Dr. Fischer. Very good reminder for all of us. Yes.
Well, that's what Sarang did.
I guess so. Yes, I did panic
That's
forward.
true. Yeah, panic forward. Yeah.
Yes. So we have 2 more questions left. And these are, since some of them had really good profiles, they had really high step scores, and they have enough number of interviews, but they still did not match. And so they're asking, how do I ace my interviews? What should I do to practice my interview skills so that I can actually grab the attention of the PD and the people who interview me, and how do they actually stand out and be memorable in that short interview session? Yeah.
Yes, well, hard to always ask that question to say about being memorable, because there are many people who despise my style that said, that guy is so memorable. So it might be memorable in a bad way, like the guy who showed up drunk to the interview. Yes. So this is a very good question, because, for instance, people have gotten favors where people got them interviews. And program directors, let me tell you, if a program director gets hit up for less than 200 people to do him favors, to take an interview for their candidate, I don't believe them. Don't believe them. I'm not even counting all the emails from the applicants. I'm counting we get 100 referrals just from inside our own residency. Would you interview my husband, cousin, wife, sister? Would you interview my husband and my boyfriend, or both? Okay, so the thing is that there are just enormous numbers of people, and so depending on circumstances and who's asking, and the people do, and that's not the majority. But there are people who get their interview because of connections. And I don't really like saying that because I hate cynical people who on social media go, yeah, it's all about connections. Well, that's not true. No program is interviewing the majority of people based on nepotism and connections. And by the way, you can get yourself into big trouble. We specifically did not take a certain applicant this year because they were caught having their sister write their letter of recommendation. And they're so clueless that they went, what, is that a problem? Your sister's giving you a professional reference. Well, I guess it would be more interesting if it had been a bad or negative letter.
Yeah.
I had my wife write me a letter, but she said I was terrible. And so, but here's the point, is that some things do happen where people get opportunities. And then they still screw it up. They still screw it up because they didn't do well in the interview. One is you have to look engaged, speak, ask questions, follow up on things, and remember every second you're on camera, you're being observed. So even next, people do stupid stuff with the program coordinators and administrators, and that has an impact on you. If the administrator has to chase you, or you're not clear on your dates, or you reschedule, or some people, none of these are all of it, but like we invited 550 people to interview. 25 people screw it up because they don't act professionally with the administrators. 25 people screwed it up because they mixed up their date. 10 or 20 people screwed it up because they had some technical issue. The other thing is, do you notice my background? You notice that everything here, none of it's random. What are we showing here? Heart-shaped sculptures and ohms and Madonnas and brand new art here. That's a local artist. It's actually the wife of our chair of psychiatry. And so what does this say about Fischer? He's got a picture of, that picture is St. Francis meeting the Sultan in Egypt, where St. Francis went across the battle lines of the Fifth Crusade to try to stop the war and to talk to the Sultan, which we know he did. So every aspect of my interview is carefully sculpted. Now, I can get away with this because I'm Conrad Fischer, at least currently. Someday you may be Conrad Fischer. So the first thing I said was to make sure your technicals are perfect, meaning how you schedule things and your interactions. The second thing is to think through what you want your background to say about you. But the third thing is to ask commentary and people you practice with. Tell me about what I've got. How does this look? And you'd be amazed at how many people have some boring, plain background with nothing, or they're looking up, their camera's like looking up their nose, or you see how right now we're at eye level, and that is a lot of people screw that up. Then there's the part about what you're actually going to say. So you practice. And say, tell me what I come across like, okay?
Yes, absolutely right. Yes, I think those things are all very important that affects the results of the interview. So just make sure you guys follow those. So we tackled all the questions we got, the commonly asked questions. And before we end, I, of course, want to really thank Dr. Fischer for his time and for his input and advice he's giving us today, because these are all very valuable coming from the program director himself. And I also want to say that for those of you who have not taken step 3 yet, MedQuestReviews have amazing video courses available taught by Dr. Fischer himself. So go ahead and check them out. I will put all the links to those courses in the description below. And if you're looking for a book for step 3, I actually used this book as well when I prepared for my step 3 exam. So go ahead and purchase this Master the Board series for step 3.
Or steal it.
Yeah, or steal it from someone, or borrow it from someone who already has it if it's, if it's hard for you to afford. So yeah, go ahead and buy this book and go to the link below to subscribe to his courses and take the step 3 exam. That's one way of increasing your chances.
I must actually say, a book is the single most affordable thing that there is.
I agree.
By far, less than a quarter of what even a QBank costs. So I want to say one last thing, and this is going to be the hardest part for some of you to hear. And some of you may get angry. But it's important because Sarang is a very sincere person, so I'm going to give a sincere answer. You don't have to like what I'm about to say, but you have to think about it. And this is for the people who've gone unmatched more than once. You have to consider, if you're going unmatched because of year of graduation and failures, or needing a visa, or all of those things, that's not going to get better next year. Let's say you've already done step 3. There's nothing. You've had U.S. clinical experience. You've done research, and your year of graduation is not getting any closer. It's getting further away. You have to consider doing something else in medicine if you want. You can consider doing something else, but there are other things that can be done. Physician assistant school, paramedic, pathology assistant. We took a guy who actually switched into being a pathology assistant, and he's an intern now because they got him into the hospital where we met him. Wow, he lucked out. But you don't lose much if you retrain. And by the way, one of our best coronary care nurses is an international graduate who just never made it through her boards and never matched. And someone in the infection control department is an international doctor who did not match. And the associate, the administrator for the medical school is an international graduate that never passed USMLE, never matched, and is an administrator for a medical school. So you have to seriously consider this if you're going on year after year. Now, some people get really angry when I say this, and they're like, are you crapping on my dreams? You're telling me I should just give up? No, I'm not telling you to give up. I'm telling you to go forward. The other thing is, you might have a job as a nurse, and by the way, they do pretty well. My own son had a very hard time academically, one of my sons, and he went to paramedic school. And paramedics do very well, very six-figure-y well. So don't get upset. I'm trying to be honest with you and helping you. But a person who doesn't move forward and spends 5 years in the match is not making a better world or better for themselves. Besides, you could always switch back in if you get the spot, right, Pookie?
Yes.
That's it. I'm Conrad Fischer, and I approve this message.
Yes. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in.
Bye.
And I hope you guys all the best in the future. Bye.
Bye.